witness what is unfolding from east to west, where people, no matter the language that they're speaking, they are clearly knowing who the enemy is. And Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, they are giving us the compass of what needs to be done. These three countries were part of ECOWAS, they were part of many African institutions, and they did not see changes, fundamental changes in the country, especially around security issues. After what people have described as military coups, I said actually the aspiration of the people of the Sahel to change the elite, the bourgeois class that control the country. We saw military leaders take control of the country, and they continue to listen to the voice of the people if you follow very closely. Now, the creation of the Confederation, the Alliance des États du Sahel, and their first summit that took place earlier in July, I think it was July 6th that took place, is simply I could say, the aspiration of people. And what is it actually? People of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali have seen for decades instability in the country. As soon as this country created an alliance, they actually seen progress. They see that the so-called jihadists are not able to do the attacks that they have done. They've seen cities controlled by terrorists now in control of the government. So they're seeing concrete progress. The second thing is the control of their wealth, particularly uranium, where they saw that they determined the cost of the uranium that was sold in the country by France, and that the uranium leaving the country benefited French people and Europe in general, while inside of Niger, for example, people still didn't have access to electricity. Now that they have built the alliance, they are actually working to strengthen the regional cooperation, to use the resources to benefit the people, and to have the security alliance that's going to still protect the people. But the bigger story is not necessarily just the summit. It's what happened after the summit, right? On July 6th, there was a summit that created a confederation of the Sahel alliance of these three countries. But the next day, it was a meeting of ECOWAS, right? Countries met. And when you look at the statement coming out of ECOWAS, it's actually worrisome. The president of Senegal, the new president of Senegal, Diomaye Faye, has been selected as the mediator to work with ECOWAS to find ways to bring back Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso back into ECOWAS. Why I am saying this is problematic? It's problematic because we have not fundamentally addressed the challenge of ECOWAS, the regional body. When you look at these three countries that created a new alliance, they explain clearly why they left. As the founding members of ECOWAS, they saw the inadequacy of ECOWAS to address sovereign decisions of countries, and two, to stop the proliferation of armed groups in the region, and three, that ECOWAS has become the mouthpiece of France, have become a mouthpiece of Western nations. Beyond the statements of the Sahel Alliance, let's just look at ECOWAS meetings. You go to an ECOWAS meeting where you have ECOWAS president sitting, you are seeing the United States government represented in the meeting, you're seeing French diplomat represented in the meeting, and you're asking yourself, is this a meeting of African states, or is this an international meeting with international actors? It becomes confusing. So not addressing the fact that ECOWAS has lost integrity with the people is a problem, right? And Diomaye Faye, who through the popular mobilization in Senegal. In Senegal, the people of Senegal were very clear that they do not want the former president Macky Sall to stay in power. There was grassroots mobilization that brought Diomaye Faye to be president, but his posture at the moment is making all of us question what is the future of Senegal when Senegal is playing the mediation between the two new body with the new body and the old ECOWAS and the Sahel states, while the people of Burkina Faso, of Mali, of Niger are very clear that their leaders today are sovereign leaders who are making decisions on behalf of the masses of these countries.
I mean, it's really incredible to witness what's taking place, Kambali. And I'm curious if you could touch on how this could possibly pose a challenge to something like AFRICOM as well as ECOWAS.
Specifically for the Sahel Alliance, they've been very clear around the imperialism in the region, and they've defined what they are. On the currency, two foreign military bases there, one of them being U.S. military base in Niger, the largest drone base. They have asked these nations, specifically France and the United States, to leave the country. The French soldiers were the first to leave. The United States is leaving up until September. I think up until the end of the year, I think all the troops from the United States will be out of Niger. But why are people, not just the government, right, of the Sahel states, why are they calling for these soldiers to leave? One, I do not see a Niger drone base in the United States. Why do we have a U.S. drone base in Niger, right? Two, the security situation of the countries has not improved. So if it hasn't improved, what are these drones doing in the region? So we do know what the drones are doing. The drones are not there for the security of the Sahel. The drones are there for U.S. interest, to protect U.S. interest. Because of that, we see that the people are becoming very clear that if we want security in our country, we need to take control of our destiny. And when you look at the resolutions coming out of the first summit, it's a very amazing document, right? You could sense the spirit of the resolution that speaks about how they are going to have food sovereignty, how are they going to have sovereignty around security, and how are they going to share resources among themselves to strengthen the countries. These are the fundamental principles of even the creation of ECOWAS or even the creation of the African Union. And these principles have not been applied or enforced. Now you are having states saying, since all the institutions that are implementing that, we are actually going to do that by ourselves. But it's inspiring to see that they have the courage to tell the United States and France that we do not need your military on our land for our security. We use the resources we have and we'll collaborate with nations who respect our sovereignty in the decisions that we are making to provide security to our people.
You know, Kambale, one of the things that's interesting in terms of looking at is looking also at the response of the imperialists who seem to be trying to shift their approach. And I know the French Economic Warfare School, for instance, recently put out a long document about what the future of France is. There are some things that seem to be happening with Cote d'Ivoire and Benin and other countries. So how are we seeing the response of France and the United States? Because obviously their troops are being kicked out, but it's not as if they're just saying, okay, we're giving up here in terms of their attempts to manipulate the politics of Africa.
And it's fascinating. You quote that document, and it's a document that's accessible now vastly online of what the School of Economic Warfare actually published. I mean, can you imagine that France has a school for economic warfare? And when you look at the document, they have clearly determined who's the enemy for France. The enemy of France is not a NATO country. It's not a global power. The enemy of France, according to the School of Economic Warfare, is Pan-Africanism. That's very telling, right? That they actually have over a 200 plus page document discussing how Pan-Africanism is a threat to French interests and to France itself. And they've mentioned names of Africans who are actually working for the betterment of Africa. When you see the names, you are confused. Why are they the enemy of France? And what they list in the document as danger is that these individuals, these institutions, be it media platforms, be it activists, are raising the consciousness of the African people around French imperialism. What does that mean? And they put it in the document that they've been working for decades to raise the consciousness of the African people particularly in Francophone Africa, around the use of a currency that they don't control, and the fact that the reserves of these countries are found in the Bank of France. How can that be something negative for Africans, right? This is a call for Africans to be sovereign, that we should have our own currency, not a currency controlled by France. So we are clear that France is seeing Pan-Africanism, a particular form of Pan-Africanism as well, right? The left Pan-Africanism, if we have to put it, a Pan-Africanism that's calling for African people to control their land, to control their resources, and to exploit those resources for the benefit, not of the elite, of the entire population. That's the enemy of France. Even if they publish this document, we on the African continent, we know that for Africa to develop, for Africa to be a force in the world of good, we must unite. We might not just unite as the African Union or as ECOWAS. We must unite in a way where we control our land, we control our resources, and we exploit them for the benefit of the masses. And we know one body that's doing that. It's the Alliance des États du Sahel, AES, the Sahel Alliance that has been created. And we see that by their actions. We see them by the actions of how these countries are looking into building infrastructure together. That we're seeing how they are saying we are going to exploit the uranium and the oil to benefit the Confederation. We are seeing in the discussion in Burkina Faso around food sovereignty, how we're going to produce agricultural products that will feed our people before we export it. So we see concretely that's the Pan-Africanism that they are pushing for. That's the Pan-Africanism that the vast majority of the African people support, and that is what France is calling the enemy of France. Unfortunately for them, the African youth is clear about Pan-Africanism. This is why from Nairobi to Bamako, all Africans are saying enough and start to the elite who are bidding for the West, and all power to the people to control our land, to control our resources, to free our people from the bondage and the misery they exist today.
You know, Kambale, that sounds fantastic. I guess the question becomes, you know, the imperialists, they don't take these things lying down. So what are the potential challenges here? I mean, I'm sure there are many, but I mean, just the first couple that come to mind, you know, I can't imagine the US and France are just going to throw their hands up and say, okay, guys, we give up. We're just going to leave this alone and let you do your thing. That's never happened. So what can we expect to see from from I guess the reactive side of the imperialist powers?
We're already seeing it. It's going to be a struggle. Let's look at what happened to Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, the AES alliance. You know, they had inhumane sanctions, right? The borders of these countries were definitely locked, right? This was a decision of ECOWAS through the influence of Westerns. We also see the accusations from Burkina Faso, from Mali and Niger, that some countries, particularly Cote d'Ivoire, right? Cote d'Ivoire has allowed its soil, and Benin, these two countries have allowed their soil to house so-called terrorists, and not only that, allow French soldiers to actually use the soil for military training, and in what they're predicting will be an attack on the Sahel states, right? So, and there will be more and more of these actions. The thing that I think is very insidious, and that's why I brought it up, is the July 7th ECOWAS meeting, where the newly elected president of Senegal, Diomaye Faye, has been chosen as the mediator between AES and ECOWAS. That's very insidious because he ran a campaign, PASTEF, they ran a campaign around imperialism. But now that they are in power, they decided not to have radical shifts as we see in AES. They are, they are sharing statements that's worrisome. Just last week, I think on July 15th, the president of Senegal, Diomaye Faye, held a press conference in the presidential palace discussing with local press about his positions on the region. And one of the journalists asked him directly, What is the position of the president of Senegal vis-a-vis French military in Senegal? Are you saying one, that they must leave, or two, if they do not leave, why you are choosing the position? Jomai Faye didn't respond to the question. He actually did the question. So since July 15th, everyone is questioning what is unfolding in Senegal, whereby the position of the head prior to presidential election is completely different. And of course, there will be more. So when we're speaking about the United States and France, we have to also think about the elite that control the region and how they are going to be used as Africans. It's going to be presented as an African solutions, Africans, brothers and sisters, to bring one another back into ECOWAS. That's not what the people of this Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso are calling for. They're calling for a radical break with imperialism. So we have to keep an eye out on it. There will be many things happening. It's already happening, but I'm still very confident because of the grassroots of progressive forces in the Sahel for decades to educate the masses around why we must be sovereign and control our own destiny, that no matter what happens in the sub-region, the people will hold the leaders accountable. And for those who are still in the ECOWAS, I'm seeing a trend. Guy Marius Sagna, the member of parliament for representing Senegal in ECOWAS, he's in the committee for audit. For the past 2 weeks, he's been challenging ECOWAS inside of the ECOWAS parliament. It's fascinating to watch those videos where he's actually asking very basic questions. Why is it that at ECOWAS, that the delegation from Liberia submit an official report about the security situation in Liberia, and in the first sentence of the security situation in Liberia, the enemy, the stability in Liberia, they're saying that is caused by the influence of communists. That is preposterous. This is the official report of Liberian ECOWAS. The second thing that he has asked is about the influence of foreign institutions into the agenda of building infrastructure in ECOWAS. And the more you follow his action in the ECOWAS parliament, which is now being posted even online, you are noticing people making comments. You should be worried, right? You should be careful. They may kill him. He's saying too much. But we need people who are going to challenge ECOWAS internally. So even inside the ECOWAS, there are many contradictions around how they operate, how they decide for the region, how even the people that they represent do not know the decisions that are being made at the ECOWAS parliament. And thanks to Guy Marius Sagna of Senegal, we are able to know the situation. So from the Sahel, AES, to those who are still within ECOWAS, everyone is showing the contradiction of ECOWAS being the tool of Western imperialism, and the people are rising up against it, and they will be successful. I believe they will definitely be successful.
Well, Kambale Musavuli, analyst with the Center for Research on the Congo, Kinshasa, thank you so much for giving us some of your time here in the Freedom Side.
Thank you always, and see you next time.